G'day guys and welcome. Welcome to our Queensland virtual vacation where it's beautiful one day and perfect the next. Now in planning a great vacation to the state of Queensland, you need to start with a little toolkit. The travel advisor, your travel advisor who's invited you to today's presentation, will be able to provide you with that kit. They will receive from us a little map, a dictionary on how to speak Aussie, just in case you have trouble understanding me. You'll be able to refer to your little dictionary, and a travel plan that we can actually send to you electronically. But contact your travel advisor for our little Australia travel kit. Your travel advisor is ultimately a key part of bringing this all together. We put these virtual vacations together on behalf of our travel advisor partners, and we do so for good reason, because they truly are the first call to action when it comes to creating a great customized itinerary, because they provide peace of mind, give good customer service, they maximize your budget, they give better choices, they save you time, they give great personal service, insights and expertise to the destinations you're seeking. They give you documentation and assistance that will get you through the airports and make sure you enter countries correctly. And of course, consumer advocates. They are your advocate should you need help and assistance when you're travelling, because they've got great industry contacts. So we like to call travel advisors your mates, because a mate is a person who makes Australia travel easy. So I'm sure you'll enjoy working with your travel advisor in customising a great itinerary to Queensland. Now, Queensland, as a state of Australia, is 1/4 the size of Australia's landmass. So it covers quite a bit of coastline too. In fact, the coastline it covers is that where the Great Barrier Reef exists, the largest living organism in the world. Now, going from the north, of course, you've got Cairns. Cairns, of course, is seen as a gateway to the Great Barrier Reef. It's a 2.5-hour flight from Brisbane, the capital. You've also got Townsville. And then the area in here, Airlie Beach, is this area here called the Whitsundays. That's an hour and 45 minutes from Brisbane to the Whitsundays. Then you've got Rockhampton and Gladstone. And in this southeast corner, we have the capital city, Brisbane, where half of Queensland's population exists. 2.5 million people call Brisbane home, and Brisbane is surrounded by some amazing natural, and we're going to go and visit a lot of these natural elements. You've got great islands, great mountain ranges, great wildlife encounters. To the south, we've got the Gold Coast, Australia's holiday playground. To the north, you've got the Sunshine Coast and Noosa and Fraser Island. And oh my goodness, it's just a state itself which does, I believe, offer a destination in its own right. I mean, flying into Brisbane, the Brisbane International Airport, you'll find that there's something like 35 different destinations you can fly directly from Brisbane, not just within Queensland, but to other parts of Australia. So Brisbane does make a good starting point. And in fact, the flight time into Brisbane from North America is the closest destination. It's 13 hours, where it's 14 hours to Sydney or Melbourne. It's only 13 hours to Brisbane. So it makes it the closest Australian city from North America. Now, apart from obviously using flight to traverse the country and to also interstate, to go inside up to Cairns, you can of course use flight. There's also rail service. There's some great train services, and this Spirit of Queensland itself takes 24 hours to go from Brisbane to Cairns. So if you want to sit back and perhaps go rail one way and then work your way back, you can do just that. It's not a bad way to see the countryside, sitting in some luxury. Look at this. Spirit of Queensland, they actually have put their seating so that actually staging it, so everybody gets a nice window view. You don't have to look over your partner's shoulder or their head. And of course, when you go to stretch out, the actual little cocoons lie flat, so you can have a lie flat bed. And you do find A1 service is provided here as well. Another way of seeing Queensland is by road, and you can go out on camper vans or RVs. Now, Queensland's quite a large state, so you do need to make sure that you have the time to enjoy it. But you could do a little section of Queensland, grab an RV. The lovely thing about our parks, as our areas where the campgrounds and stay, is they've got all the modern conveniences, and you'll find a lot of Aussies are travelling as well. And Aussies are so much fun when they're travelling. So when you're there as Americans pulling in, or Canadians pulling in, they'll welcome you with open arms. And the beautiful thing, as you can see here, is you wake up in the morning to that view, that vista, the smell of the bush, the ocean. It's right there before you. And self-driving is another way to connect you as well, perhaps using hotels but at the same time, having a vehicle which will get you out to explore. The beautiful thing about driving is that, you can do things at your own pace. Once again, it's about being planned and being organised. So you need to talk to your travel advisor in terms of what your intentions are, how much time you have. And once we've worked all that out, what we can do is put together a little trip kit. We put together a co-pilot kit with maps and a day-by-day itinerary of exactly where you're going and what you're doing, so you just can't get lost. We make sure it's all laid out for you. Now, the capital city of Brisbane is this bustling metropolis. It sits on this meandering river. The Brisbane River meanders right through the central business district of Brisbane. And Brisbane itself, it's just a gorgeous city. You've got jacaranda trees and flowers, and the river is really the essence of life, and life gathers around this river. Weather-wise, Brisbane has probably some of the best weather in Australia. Even in winter, it's between 51 and 70 degrees in winter, while summer is from 70 to 85. The difference, of course, is humidity. It gets a little more humid November, December, January, a little more high humidity. But at the same time, you're staying in air-conditioned hotels with lovely swimming pools. You're in air-conditioned vehicles going out touring. You'll be just fine. Brisbane really is a destination 12 months a year, as is Queensland, all the way through to Cairns. Fabulous area to visit, and it's all about getting out and exploring. Now, when you first arrive at Brisbane Airport, you're only 20 minutes away from the city centre. I like to recommend that you get picked up and are looked after. There's no point getting to the hotel when things aren't necessarily open and you can't get yourself a room just yet. So why not head up to Mount Cootha? You can see the little red dot there. That's where the city is. And of course, you've got Mount Cootha, this wonderful area of bush and fabulous lofty views out over Brisbane itself. There's a lovely summit restaurant. And in fact, while you're there, if you're interested in a quick stroll, you can stroll through the Mount Cootha Botanic Gardens. These beautiful gardens give you a great insight into native Australian plants, and also they attract lots of birds and also lots of marsupials. In fact, they do at certain times of the year offer nocturnal tours, because a lot of Australia's marsupials only come out at night. Another thing to think about is their little bush tucker tour. If you're into understanding the Aboriginal people and learning about how they survived in Australia, then you can perhaps go on a little bush tucker tour that will take you and bring you into touch with some of the local delicacies. Now, here's one you wouldn't have thought of being Australian. And when you think of macadamias, you think of Hawaii, don't you? Well, let me tell you, 70% of all macadamias grown around the world, and that's Hawaii as well, 70% of them come from one tree out of Ipswich, which is just outside of Brisbane. Yeah, this is an Australian food, macadamia, and you get a chance to see them as well. Another thing you could probably do in the morning is perhaps drop out to Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary. I mean, there you are. You've just flown in. Why not go and cuddle a koala and say, "Good morning, Australia. Here we are." Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary, a nice time in the morning, just as the birds are active. You can feed the kangaroos. What a great welcome to have the wildlife of Australia right here in Brisbane, welcoming you to this lovely city. And then perhaps take the Miramar, the koala and cruiser vessel that will take you meandering down the river back into the city. That's another great little tour that you can do while you're here. Now, in the CBD, the Central Business District, you're looking at just a short walk to a lot of activity. And I wanted to use this map. You can see the 10-minute walk and the 20-minute walk just to give you an idea. And some of the things I want to point out, Caxton Street, up here is where you'll find the Suncorp Stadium and some great restaurant little areas. You've got this beautiful Roma Street parkland and great free parkland to wander through, wonderful native forest you can wander through. The Brisbane City Hall, home to a lovely museum. The Treasury Casino, home to some gambling, but also an historic building which is very close to the mall. You've got Queensland Art Gallery, and that sits on the South Bank area, and South Bank's a lovely area we're going to explore just a moment. You've got Kangaroo Point Cliffs, and this whole area over here is an area for some abseiling and some climbing. Brisbane Botanic Gardens, lovely to wander through. Eagle Street Pier, great restaurant area. And then across the river, you've got Story Bridge that crosses over, an iconic bridge in Brisbane, and that's close to the Howard Smith Wharves. So you've kind of got your bearings in this area. How do we get around? Well, you can get on the City Cat, and the cats are great. I mean, look at this thing. It's luxurious. It's leisurely. You can hop up on top. I mean, you can get a chance to. You don't get your bearings in Brisbane until you get on the water. there is in fact a free vessel if you're only doing that central area. It's called the City Hopper. So you can just hop on this, and it puddles around, as you can see here, a little map showing you where it goes, and you can use that to connect. And you can walk one section, and you can hop on the ferry another, and it's easy to get around, really is. In fact, here's a little bird's eye view. You've got over here the Roma Street Parkland, and Roma Street is where the railway station. So R for Roma Street, R for railway. Remember that, because that's where you'll catch your train journeys to go out and about in Queensland. Across the river, you've got the Gallery of Modern Art. And then further down on that, while we're on that side, you've got the South Bank. So that's that area of on the other side, you've got the Treasury Hotel Casino and the Brisbane Botanical Gardens, the Central Botanical Gardens, and then the Kangaroo Cliffs are at the very end, just to give you bearings. Now, going to the heart of any Queenslander is going to Suncorp Stadium. It used to be called Lang Park when I was there, and as a South Australian coming to Queensland, I was like, wow, they really do love their rugby. I went to a game. I went and saw basically as an interstate rivalry between New South Wales and Queensland. The cockroaches, which is what the Queenslanders call New South Wales people, and the cane toads, which is what the Queenslanders get called. And this is the hallowed turf for Queenslanders. That's what they call people from Queensland. They call them Queenslanders. And Wally Lewis, well, they call him King Wally because he has resided over many a victory. But if you're into getting an understanding of what Queensland is all about, go and watch their local sport. Go to a game of rugby. It's just so much fun. And as Americans and Canadians, make sure you ask lots of questions, because you'll find they're very, very comfortable in kind of sharing their sport. If you're interested in them, they're so interested in you. And after you've been to the game, you might want to head to Caxton Street, which is right next to and there's Caxton Street, so it's a little area of lots of pubs and restaurants. You've got the Caxton Street Hotel, you've got the Hotel LA, which is the Lord Albert Hotel. It's some wonderful little spots here to go and dine, and al fresco dine, great spots to sit outside and enjoy a little brew and catch up with the locals. Now, the Brisbane Gallery of Modern Art is an insight into the creative side of the local Queenslander, and just a little wander through here, if you're so inclined, will give you an insight into what they're all about. This whole region, though, is all about getting outside, and they love to get on bikes and cycle along here. You've got the beautiful South Bank Parklands, which is a collective of restaurants and hotels and some great shops. And so wandering through here, meandering through here, you can actually go swimming. There's a street beach right here as well, which is quite popular in summer. You can sit outside, have a nice glass of vino, and just watch the world go by. Fabulous spot. And then they've got these little tucked away, exciting little places you've got to kind of know to discover. And in fact, there's a great tour you can do that will take you to some of the laneways of Brisbane, like, for example, Fish Lane, where you'll see Chew the Fat, a great little Chinese restaurant. And being accommodated over here, staying at a place like the Ridges Hotel in South Bank, gives you beautiful views out over the river, and you get a real feeling of kind of being. I mean, you want to find yourself immersing yourself. You want to kind of look out here across the river. There's the Treasury building through the Ferris wheel there. That's the Treasury building you see there. And just behind that Treasury building is the chambers here, the chambers for MacArthur. Yes, General MacArthur, I might say, because back in World War II, we had a lot of Americans come over. In fact, they say between 3 and 4 million Americans, US troops, came across. And in Brisbane alone, they had 300,000 based here at quite a stay. And basically, this city was where the battles of the South Pacific and the Coral Sea were managed and fought from Australian soil under the guidance of General MacArthur. And that legacy still lives on today. I can tell you Australia has been involved in every war since then that America's been involved, by your side like a little yappy dog. We're there to support you. And I got to say, too, when these handsome American sailors were in town, they also met up with quite a good many Australian women. And as gentlemen they were, they married them, but they couldn't just automatically take them home at the end of their duty. What happened was the US government put a vessel on called the Monterey. And the Monterey came across from the US and came into Brisbane, and there was a train called the Bridal Train that picked up brides from Fremantle, Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, and brought these brides, called the Bridal Train. It's a beautiful song about that. If you want to know it, I can send you the link. And basically, they were shipped off to the US, and we're talking thousands of brides. Yes, so yes, America had made a little investment in our country and we definitely paid back handsomely. In fact, coming into Brisbane, going to the City Hall, they've got a lovely museum, this grand building, a great museum that will give some insight into those early days. Now, right within 10 minutes of there, you've got the Queen Street Mall, a live, active area of shops and restaurants, al fresco dining down the middle of the mall itself, and there's a great accommodations, the Next Hotel, which sits right over that mall. So it's a good location. For the very back of it is one of those little cheeky laneways I was talking about, Burnett Lane. Lots of little bars in there and breweries and the super whatnot. They have a great little spot. Then you've got Kangaroo Point Cliffs. Now, Kangaroo Point Cliffs, from here you're looking back to the city. What you're looking, all that greenery there's mangrove, which is close to the water. Mangrove, of course, very important for the breeding of fish and barramundi. And then behind that is the Botanic Gardens. Now, if you were to climb over those flowers there, you would be basically climbing over the Kangaroo Cliffs. This is a great spot to abseil. And Queenslanders are all about getting outside. When you've got great weather like they've got here, where it is beautiful one day and perfect the next, then why not abseil one day and go kayaking the next, perhaps go for a wander through the Botanic Gardens, and if you're there on a Sunday, do a little shopping, catch up with the locals, grab a coffee, meet. It's immersive vacations are what it's all about. So talk to your travel advisor. If this sort of stuff interests you, we can customise into your itinerary. For example, here, you can hop on a bike and you can just along this Eagle Street Pier area, you've got al fresco cafes, and see across the river, see that big bridge? That's called the Story Bridge. If you've still got a bit of energy left, you can actually do a Story Bridge adventure climb, and that gives you lofty views up over the city. It's quite a good, fun little climb, and you'll really get your chance to, again, get your bearings, because a river city is hard to understand. Right below this glorious Story Bridge is a wonderful area of dining. And in fact, there's a new 5-star called Fantazo, and it's snugly sitting right under this metal structure. You've also got these beautiful wharves as well, the Howard Smith wharves, and these have been opened up, these historic wharves, and now been opened up. There's some wonderful restaurants in here, the Greca, the Groma restaurant. There's also a great little brewery called Felons, and some fabulous spots like Mr. Percival's. You can sit outside and really enjoy this bustling city. Also, as an extension of that, you're kind of leaving here, now going into Fortitude Valley. Fortitude Valley is where the locals like to travel to. This is, like James Street, for example, where you get locally made fashions and homewares, and there's actually an urban winery. The city winery is found here as well. Some great restaurants in here, lovely little laneway area called Adder Lane, which is a gorgeous little spot, and some great restaurants like Burrumble. And this actually sits below a new hotel called the Carlisle Hotel, and a great little spot. So we can organise accommodation and make sure you're in the great spots to enjoy all that. Further on the river, it's making its journey to the ocean. There's another spot I want to point out is the Eat Street and Breakfast Creek Hotel. Eat Street is an area which is a wharf area. This whole area here was a shipping container area where they stored all the shipping containers. Well, they've turned these shipping containers into about 180 dining and entertainment venues. So when you come here, you really do mix with locals. This is the laneway. There's a whole heap of different sections. You've got another one which is Asian, and some great pizzas, and so you can wander through here. It's got a really good scene to it. The smells, the entertainment, the music, it's fabulous. One of my favourites when I was living in Brisbane, though, was the Brecky Creek Hotel. Now, this is quite a historic old pub, a grand old girl, and in the front bar, the Brecky Creek Hotel, you can still get a beer off the wood, because that's how beer was originally transported, in wooden kegs, and 4X still does just that. They provide them with beer on the keg, so you can blow the froth off a coldie. Yeah. Now, Brisbane itself also has some great attractions within 30 to 60 minutes. Now, we're not talking walking now, we're talking driving or by boat. So within 30 and 60 minutes, you've got some great areas really close by. For example, heading across to the islands of Moreton Island and Stradbroke Island, these are sand islands, or going south down to the Gold Coast, or maybe north up to the Sunshine Coast and Noosa Heads. All these areas are close, and this kind of fittingly is referred to as Southeast Queensland. And you can get from Brisbane River on this river to bay cruises, you can head out and go and visit some of these amazing little spots. You can head out into Moreton Island and across to North Straddie. And North Straddie, you can catch up with some Australian wildlife in the wild, kangaroos in the wild. You'll also get a chance to see whales that kind of cruise right past here. If you want to get out and see them a little closer, then hop on a cruise and takes you across to Moreton Island. Moreton Island is where you'll find Tangalooma, and it's here that you'll get a chance to meet up with all sorts of underwater activity. You can do some wreck diving and snorkeling, and you can do some sand tobogganing. There's all sorts of fun stuff, and it sits right on the edge of Brisbane. Tangalooma Wild Dolphin Resort, though, is a place to stay. An overnight here is truly special because right on sunset, wild dolphins come in and you can hand feed them. And that whole experience is just amazing and something to be celebrated with perhaps a little sunset barbecue there, a little barbie and a nice glass of vino. Now, you want to find out where that vino comes from? Excuse me. Maybe head to Cermet Winery. Now, Cermet Winery is breaking lots of records. You know, this winery actually gets a lot of its juice, a lot of its grape comes from out the granite, what they call the granite belt, which is out near Roma, and it's full of great minerals, and the grape that they're crushing in here is providing some award-winning wines. Now, for an award-winning stay, you can stay with them here at the Cermet Sanctuary. The sanctuary itself is like being on an African safari tent. Little timbered floors, you've got your ensuite at the back, and this canvas canopy over top. Out the front there on your deck, you're enjoying a little coffee in the morning, and you're sharing that time with wallabies that will come in to say hello. From here, you can go exploring. You can head up and go to the Yatala Pie Shop. Now, I mention the pie shop because it happens to be a very Australian thing to do. Doesn't matter where you are in Queensland, a small country town, a major city like Brisbane, you'll always find the pie is something revered. And so when you go into a little town, make sure you try their local delicacies. The meat pie, the dog's eye with a bit of dead horse sauce. Have I confused you yet? No, I don't. Stay with me. But one thing I'd highly recommend you do throughout your journey in Queensland is to ensure that you get a chance to meet up with the local Indigenous Aboriginal people. We're talking a culture that's lived for over 60,000 years, and the spirit of Red Sands will take you right through that whole process and also give you insight into the latter part of life. And I think it's important that we make touch. We kind of get an opportunity to have the whole welcome to country, because this is, of course, Aboriginal country for 60,000 years, and it's just a phenomenal experience. Going south of here, you head to the Gold Coast, which is basically a holiday playground. You've got a mountain range called the Gold Coast hinterland that kind of runs parallel with the Gold Coast. And you've got this amazing area of coastline, great surfing beaches, a great opportunity. A lot of us, this is where Aussies go on vacation. So if you want to mix with Aussies, you come to the right spot. And nothing like getting out for a surf in the morning. But mixing with locals is what's most important here. Now, we've got a company we work with called Local Yokel. And Local Yokel basically will link you up with locals. I mean, you want to have that experience where, you want to go to an Aussie barbecue, just let us know. We'll tie up an itinerary where you actually get a chance to go to a local home where they're throwing a shrimp on the barbie, you're sitting out there with the ocean crashing away, you're enjoying a glass of vino, helping cook up a salad, being a part of somebody's local life. I think that's important, Or what about not just going to the Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary, but what about getting a behind-the-scenes tour, actually working with a local vet there to give assistance to wildlife? What about a behind-the-scenes tour of an actual surf life-saving club, like the Currumbin Surf Life-Saving Club? I mean, this is a quintessential part of Australia. And on a Friday night, the Surf Life-Saving Club is just going off like a frog in a sock. This is where the locals go for a barbie. They'll have a meat tray raffle. And then all of a sudden, you're an invited guest. Because you've got to be a member to go. You're an invited guest, and they've got a meat tray raffle. You're buying a ticket and a meat tray. All of a sudden, you won the meat tray, and everybody's going, right, barbecue at my place, and you're invited. How to make friends. I mean, it's all about just becoming an Aussie, and that's what we're trying to do. For example, there's also the opportunity to have a coldie on the Goldie. Now, what does that mean? A coldie, well, that's that beer that she's holding up there, the froth on top of it. That's called a coldie. Now, the Goldie is what we call the Gold Coast. So when people say, I'm going to the Goldie for the weekend, they're going to the Gold Coast for the weekend. So a coldie on the Goldie means we're going to go and visit some little bars and some little breweries and do a little brewery tour of the Gold Coast. In fact, the company's name is Hop On Brewery Tours. Hop On being a little play in words, but yeah, a great thing. Now, speaking of basing yourself down here, you've got an array of accommodations like this one here, the iconic Kira Beach Resort, which offers 1, 2, 3 bedroom apartments. If you're going to base yourself here, like for say 4 nights, or you need that sort of time too to really explore. Some might want to head out and perhaps go up into that rainforest area. This is subtropical rainforest. O'Reilly's rainforest retreat puts you right in amongst it. And it's from here that you're going to chance to see some amazing bird life. Incredible. The Gold Coast hinterland is home to incredible bird life. And in fact, this National Geographic asked Les Beltsky to actually put together a book on global birding. And his favourite place after researching the whole world was the Gold Coast. He said this was just amazing. Another bloke you might know, Sir David Attenborough, said one of the most amazing birds in the world is the lyrebird. This little Australian bird here can mimic the sound of a car starting. It can mimic the sound of a camera clicking. It can mimic the sound of a jackhammer. It's amazing what it can do. And it, of course, it mimics the sounds of every other bird in the rainforest. And you get a chance to see these if you're into kind of hiking and going into like the Mount Tamborine rainforest, and taking in the Skywalk and going on a little hike to Curtin Falls. This is just beautiful. So close to Brisbane and so close to the Gold Coast. Hiking down to Curtin Falls, keep your eyes open because you might see a platypus when you're down there too. That's a monotreme, an egg-laying marsupial. It's got a beak like a duck, a tail like a beaver. The males have got the little spurs in their hind legs. What a bizarre. It's got a taser in that beak, a little electric shock. When it's in the water there, it will use that little current to kind of stun its prey. Fabulous. Then Brisbane itself, of course, is also home to this, what they call the Scenic Rim. The Scenic Rim forms part of that great dividing range that rips up the east coast of Australia. This wonderful, seemingly impenetrable mountain barrier of bushland is just pungent aroma of eucalyptus, and coming up through here to stay at a place like the Spices Peak Lodge is to be in high country, surrounded by bush, but in the lap of luxury. Here you can go out climbing and hiking and mountain biking, and you'll have kangaroos and cockatoos in the trees, and you'll come back in the evening to the lap of luxury. Just wonderful. This is quite decadent. But they also do some great walking tours through here, and you can stay in tents, but it's luxury camping too, I might say. Now, going north to the Sunshine Coast is, again, a great coastal area, but also a mountain range through. You've got the Glasshouse Mountains, which are definitely worthwhile coming through. Captain Cook called it the Glasshouse Mountains back in 1770. That's 250 years ago that Captain Cook discovered this coastline, and that's what he saw. It's hardly changed from then. And to come in here, you'll actually go to the little town of Beerwah and drop into the Australia Zoo, made famous by, of course, Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter. And then you can do a little trip up through the hillside, and lots of little craft shops and bakeries. Drop into the Maloney Bakery, try their bee sting, that cake is nuts, and then maybe head on, maybe stay up here at Spices Clovelly Estate up in Montville, very French style. Love the typical Queenslander home, I might add, with a big veranda around the entire side, timbered floors. But the menu, the food in here is fabulous. I had a degustation menu here. It was just delightful, paired with wine, just fabulous. And beautiful views out over the back. The grounds are gorgeous, big jacaranda tree. And they've got all these little arts and shops and little artisans living up through here. You can do art on Cane Cross, where you get lots of local stuff. You can head down to your Monday markets. This is Adelaide's premier artisan markets. And basically, they boast here, their motto is to make it, bake it, sow it, or grow it. I reckon they should add brew it too. Now, I mean brew it for coffee, but also for beers, because they've got an amazing array of local produce, and some great souvenir shopping can be done here as well. Now, you'll find if you went by the coast, there's some gorgeous little coastal towns. One of my favourites is Mooloolaba, and Mooloolaba has been voted having one of the best beaches in Australia, and it's also from here that you can head out. It's one of the only places you can actually go and swim with humpback whales. So that's kind of fun. Now, if you're going to stay in this area, if you're a beach person, you want to stay close to the beach, then Mantra Mooloolaba gives you a nice little apartment-style accommodations, great facilities. At the same time, you can use that as a base. Or maybe head up to Noosa. Now, Noosa is fabulous. It sits here. What you're looking at here, that's the Noosa Beach here, and this is actually the Noosa National Park out here. It's quite an iconic area, one of the most frequented national parks. You can do some great walks out through here. In fact, Noosa itself is part of a UNESCO biosphere. So they're the community here that live here. There's no buildings taller than a palm tree, and the community is very much focused on managing a balance between community and conservation. There's no plastic. It's a plastic-free zone. Right through this little strip through here is the green strip. That's actually a street called Hastings Street. Wonderful restaurants, lots of accommodations, great alfresco dining, just fabulous. And behind us here, behind this is a wonderful area of national park. Something like over 400 species of birds are found here. And that's the Noosa River you can see meandering through. And sitting on Hastings Street, nice little wine or a meal. I mean, it's really from here that you start your day and you work out what are we going to do. Accommodation-wise, you've got the Seaville, Noosa as an example. Or if you want to step it up, if you've got a family group that you want to kind of travel with, you can go to Makepeace Island, owned by Richard Branson. Only 10 individual huts, maximum of 26 people. It's all personal staff. You've got tennis courts and spas and movie room and a private boat to go into Noosa and stand-up paddleboards. I mean, it's just delightful. But the Noosa Everglades is one of my favourite. A lot of people don't know about the Everglades, and there's only 2 Everglades in the world, and this one here is 45% of the bird species of Australia live here. So it's amazing. That river that meanders through, they call it the River of Mirrors, because the reflection from when you're paddling down through here, the tannins of the water give it a real mirror-like reflection. And the birds that you'll see are phenomenal that kind of come through here. It's just a great experience, and so close to Noosa itself and easily accessed. Or you could actually stay out there too. Go and stay at the Habitat Noosa, like this safari-style tent with ensuite, kangaroos hopping around outside. If you want the quintessential Australian experience, it sits right here. And then maybe go on some adventures, head up Rainbow Beach. I used to do some great fishing up here. Rainbow Beach is a great spot with a tailor run, big surf rod. What a wonderful thing to do. But heading up this white sand beach, rainbow sands to your left, you're heading up towards Fraser Island. And Fraser Island is the world's largest sand island, and it sits out at right angles. You can see it sits out at a little bit of an angle, and this acts like a major fish trap. So lots of whales get caught up in here, and a great spot to go whale watching. You have this real Harrison Ford, Raiders of the Lost Ark experience. You'll drive your four-wheel drive up onto this Manta Ray Fraser Island barge, and you'll be dropped on the beach on Fraser Island, and there you are out there on this beautiful beach and this wonderful white sand. And you think of it, it's surrounded by salt water, it's a sand island, and yet on this island, it's all sorts of Australian bush and wildlife. Right in the heart of it, they've actually got a rainforest, a little rainforest creek meandering through, and they've got something like 40 lakes on here. And the water on these lakes, they call them perch lakes. The water on these lakes, the water's actually filtered through the sand. The sand's like a fine silica powder. And when the water finally makes itself into this lake, it's so crystal clear. When you stick your head in the water and look across the other side, you can see across the other side. It attracts all sorts of wildlife, and it has the purest strain of dingo in the world. These dingo are a smart dog. In fact, I can tell you a story about the Kingfisher Beach Resort. This resort here is a lot of fun. I've stayed here many a time. When they first opened up, they have these electric doors where they've got the pads. When you stand on the pad, the doors open up. The dingoes worked that out. They just thought, this is great. I just go and stand on these little pads and the doors open up and I walk in. People were leaving their shoes outside. Dingoes love leather, so they're taking all the boots. They're like kleptomaniacs, but they've stopped all that now. But yeah, kind of fun. And staying here, you've got a great opportunity to head out and do some whale watching here in Hervey Bay as well. Now, north of here is where you'll start and see the southern part of the Great Barrier Reef. Little islands like Lady Elliot Islands. And I've dived up here. Anyway, it doesn't matter what the weather, you'll always find somewhere where it's quite calm and you can actually head out and do some diving. Right now, there's a pink manta ray called Inspector Clouseau, who's kind of in the waters in and around. I mean, it's just amazing to see something like that. And then Heron Island, I remember my first trip to Heron Island, I flew across and landed. The guy that met me, the manager, was wearing a complete white suit. I felt like the plane to plane. It was like just out of a movie. It was amazing. And then we went snorkeling, and we had so much fun snorkeling that day that I actually missed my flight back, so I had to stay the night. And then I flew next morning on a helicopter. We saw manta rays. It was just phenomenal. And going further north, I'd drop into Rockhampton. Rocky's Australia's capital of cattle. And it's here that you'll find an opportunity to go and stay on a farm. If you want to go and have a really traditional Australian farm stay and get on horseback and round up the cattle, then this can be done here out of Rocky. Rocky's a great town too. People are real friendly, salt of the earth. Further north from there, you get the Whitsundays, where there's 74 islands that make up the Whitsundays. Of those islands, only 5 of them actually have resorts, and so of which we'll go and touch on some in a second. But you can either head out and land out on Hamilton Island, where you'll see that plane there, or you'll land onto Prossy and Proserpine, and you'll take into the Chute Harbour and do a boat out from there. Now, getting in a plane in this area is a must. You don't really appreciate the Great Barrier Reef until you see it from the air. I mean, it's the largest living organism in the world, and as you can see from just this little view here, even that does not do it justice. And to get up in the air and to kind of fly over some of the sites like Heart Reef, it is heart-rendering. It's just amazing. And then Whitehaven Beach, and dropping down here, this lovely white sand beach, your feet squeak when you walk through it. It's about a 7-kilometre stretch of silica sand. It's just fabulous. And then Airlie Beach itself too, you want to get onto the mainland. I mean, Airlie Beach is surrounded by some great park, some great bush, and also just the locals. A lot of Aussies come here, you know. If you want to mix it with the locals, Airlie Beach is really quite affectionately known. It's the heart of adventure. Lots of adventure activities you can do from out of here. And yeah, it's a great spot. Lots of bars and restaurants and nightclubs. But if you're looking for the island stay, Daydream Island is a great one for couples and families. Whitsundays, in the Whitsundays, the Hamilton Island. Hamilton Island, of course, is definitely a popular spot because you've got everything from 3-star up to 5-star, 6-star luxury. I mean, Qualia is one of the best luxury resorts. And you can see that view you'll get there. That's a view from the swimming pool that's part of your room, your little plunge pool. Just magic. Another property that's doing quite well for those looking for luxury, Hayman Island. And this island launch you see here, that launch is actually your reception facility. When you board this boat, your luggage disappears and you'll autograph your little registration card. They'll give you French champagne and you'll sit back. When you arrive, they'll give you a little tour of the actual village to make sure that you know where everything is, and then you'll be taken to your room and magically your luggage will reappear. Now, a great little experience you can do from there, that heart-shaped reef I was talking about, you can take this little helipad trip. You can take a helicopter out to heart-shaped reef, and this is like a day-use sort of room where you can have meals inside there. It's air-conditioned, you can get changed, and then you can head out and go snorkeling and diving. For those that want to really do a good dive experience, the Cruise Whitsundays has got a number of different stations out on the reef. These are tethered stations, and some of them are quite large, and they'll actually have a vessel that will come out, and they'll have underwater viewing platforms and glass bottom boats and semi-submersibles and marine biologists, and they'll have a whole kit. This particular one is actually for an overnighter. See those little grey tops on top? I'll explain those in a minute. But what you're looking at here is an opportunity to go on a snorkeling safari. So you've come out here and you go exploring and you snorkel. And when you come back from your safari, everybody knows at the end of a good day's safari, when you're doing a little reef sleep, that's what they call that, the reef sleep, then sundowners are very appropriate. So a little sundowner, a nice meal, of course, will follow, and then off to bed you go. And that's where you're sleeping, out there on the reef. The sounds of the water, the lovely sunset, the lovely fresh air. Or maybe you want a reef suite. The reef suite puts you underwater, and you've got these televisions, live, Great Barrier Reef TV station happening all night. So you can kind of sit in there and just watch the fish swim past. If you really want to experience the reef, I recommend a little crude sailing exercise. You can do this just for a few nights. You don't have to go for an extended period. But if you've always wanted the romance of sail, then this is a great spot to do just that. I can tell you one story of me being out with my wife, and we'd been sailing, and it got a little dark. So we pulled into a cove in darkness. We could barely see where we were going. We dropped anchor, had a lovely meal that night, woke up next morning, and the boat looked like it was floating in the middle of the air because the water was so crystal clear you could see the shadow of the boat underneath. It looked like it was suspended. I jumped in the water. We went swimming then, and we swam across some rocks, and I pried off a few oysters, and that's what we had for breakfast. 10 o'clock in the morning, oysters and Chardonnay, the best oysters I've ever had, and they just can't be beaten. Further north, we've got Cairns, and Cairns is where two World Heritage areas collide. You've got the Great Barrier Reef, and and the Daintree Wilderness Rainforest. And that mountain range there is part of that, up the Atherton Tablelands you're looking at, which is actually part of that Great Dividing Range that rips up the east coast of Australia. Now, this little city is always looking to reinvent itself, lots of new coming through, and there's a company called Crystal Brook Collection that's got a lovely collection of hotels now, the Bailey, the Riley, and the Flynn, all providing great accommodations in good locations, very close to the pier in Cairns, very close to the Cairns night markets, and very close to the Cairns Aquarium. And there's the pier here. You can see that's the Cairns Pier and the actual lagoon pool, a very popular spot to go swimming. Out on the pier, of course, they've got the Salt House, a great bar, a very popular spot. The Ochre Restaurant, run by a mate of mine, Craig Squire, does a fabulous job of using indigenous foods, Aboriginal foods, in with a contemporary style cuisine. It's a fabulous restaurant. You've got the Cairns Night Market, as I mentioned before, a good spot to go, a little souvenir shopping, or if you want just a nice, easy meal in the evening, and stop in here to the markets and get some food. And the Cairns Aquarium, which I highly recommend if you're really interested in understanding the Great Barrier Reef, this is like step one. You come in here, get an insight into what the Great Barrier Reef's all about, to learn a bit about the fish that you're going to end up swimming with. And maybe even do the same thing with the Cairns Botanic Gardens. In the Botanic Gardens, you can wander through here. They've got little maps made up. You've got everything from indigenous food they'll discuss. They'll talk about the rainforest, the food, the plants, the butterflies, and the animals that live in here as well, possums that feed off the local plants. And on a weekend, they have the markets. It's fun to do what locals do. To step outside of the touristy things, go to the local markets, chat with the locals before you know it. You've been invited to a barbie or off to see the footy or go to the races, Especially, going out to the reef when you're here. The reef trip itself, there's a number of ways to do it. A typical reef main tour would go out here to a pontoon and you go snorkeling and diving, and they've got, of course, snorkeling is just amazing. They've also got underwater viewing platforms, and they've got glass bottom boats, so you don't need to get wet. But for those that want to get wet and do like the idea of diving, you can do what's called a resort dive, which means you don't have to be a qualified diver, but you'll be basically going handheld with a diver to get that experience. This could be your first experience. But if you are a serious diver, then seriously look at liverboard. Liverboards is the way to go. 2 or 3 nights out there on a liverboard, doing drift dives and wreck dives and night dives. That's what you want to do, and it's a great way to go. We can organise that with your travel advisor. Another major tour to do is the Kuranda Rail. Now, the Kuranda Rail takes you through about a dozen hand-hewn tunnels up through rainforest, past spectacular waterfall in season, up to the town of Kuranda. Now, Kuranda was a haven for hippies back in the 60s. These hippies become capitalists, selling some great souvenirs. So you can do a little shopping up here, and you can go and visit a place called Rainforest Station and see where we've put to good use. World War II army ducks are used to take us for a little guided tour through the rainforest. You'll also get a chance to meet up with the local Palmagiri Aborigines as they put a fabulous, insightful show here at their little stage right in this rainforest auditorium. It's just wonderful. Now, if you want to stay outside of Cairns and go somewhere a little quieter, you can go to Palm Cove. Swaying coconut palms. Your accommodation is sitting behind that. A place like the Pullman Cove Sea Temple is a divine space to stay. Or perhaps you want to head further north and take that road. We can organise the keys for a car. You can drive yourself, or we can have a local guide look after you, taking you up through, and it's one of the best drives. It's a bit like the Big Sur Drive in California. It's just phenomenal. You can stop into Hartley Crocodile Adventures and kind of come face to face with some of the wildlife. You might even want to stay before you get to Port Douglas. Drop into Taylor Beach Lodge. This is where the reef meets the rainforest, and it's just a fabulous location. The view, that's what it's all about. And of course, Port Douglas itself, you wouldn't believe that Port Douglas is a whole, amongst all those trees and you're looking at there's accommodations. And this is 4 Mile Beach. That's a busy day on 4 Mile Beach. Fabulous. You can stay right amongst those palms at like the Port Douglas Peninsula Boutique Hotel. Great little ensuite area. These are the sort of places where you're staying for like 4 nights, 5 nights. So you're really melding in. You want to become a local. You want to kind of wander down to the Courthouse Hotel, go and put a bet on the TAB and have a beer over blow the froth off a coldie with the locals, have a chat, watch the footy on TV. Pig's ear, beer, you get the language now? And then from there you might head down to Port Douglas Marina. Down to the marina, it's got a great little series of restaurants now. They're redeveloping all this. This is where you'll board vessels that will take you out to the Great Barrier Reef. Like, for example, Sailaway, they do this wonderful little low-aisle cruise, taking you out to a coral cay. You'll explore this area, meet up with the locals, and of course, you're never too far away from the vessel. You can kind of get easy access on the back of it. They do fabulous sunset sailings too, quite delightful finish to a fabulous day. And don't forget to immerse yourself, like meet up with the local Kukulilangi. They do this wonderful cultural habitat tour through here. You go out spearing crab, mud crab and fish, and they'll cook up a wonderful lunch for you, or maybe they'll take you to the rainforest, up to Mossman Gorge. This is one here guiding a group, and of course you're always in good hands with one. You might even get a chance to see a cassowary, the second largest bird in Australia, the cassowary. And of course, up through this region, you'll head up into the Daintree. The Daintree, home to some big crocs, and it's phenomenal. It's just the touring you do up through here, forward driving. At the same time, coming home in the evening to your base, like the Silky Oaks Lodge, right tucked amongst the rainforest, a delightful place to kind of relax and really take it all in. Now, you can link the rainforest with the reef and maybe tag in, perhaps staying across at Lizard Island, if you want, the 5-star luxury. But then you don't need to go all that crazy. You can also use your budget well. Stay at a place like Fitzroy. I mean, Fitzroy is this wonderful resort. It's only 45 minutes from Cairns, and they've got one of the most popular beaches, in all of Australia. It's called Nudie Beach. Yeah. And they've got this turtle rehabilitation centre there, and they do reef restoration projects. I mean, I like to support companies that are doing the right thing for the reef. Or Badara Island. Badara is actually south off of Mission Beach, and Badara is a lovely luxury accommodation. Only 10 actual suites here. Yeah, quite a nice property, and puts you very close to the reef as well. In fact, from Mission Beach, the reef is a lot closer than going north. And while you're here at Mission Beach, you might want to go rafting up the Tully. In fact, the Oars magazine voted that this rafting trip is one of the top 10 rafting trips in the world. The rafting at Tully. You'll have water dragons and Ulysses butterfly, these big turquoise blue butterflies, big as the palm of your hand, flapping across as you're paddling away. And I mentioned how close the reef was. Mission Beach, you can go out and do a dive out here. You can do a little day trip, dive off of Eddy Reef via Dunk Island. I went out here off a place called Beaver Cay, and we did some snorkeling at it. While I was in the water, I felt this spray and it smelled like fish. And I'm thinking, oh, that's pretty ugly. And I looked across, there was a whale and its calf in the water with me. And that's how close we were together in the water to have the spray, its breath kind of coming over me while swimming. Fabulous. We spent like an hour in the water with these little minke whales. Amazing. And then there's Queensland's outback. Gulf Savannah country, accessible by some wonderful rail journeys that will link you through to cross the Atherton tablelands out into the savannah, and you can actually stay out in historic railway carriage accommodation, which sits right next to a major attraction, the Undara lava tubes, underground lava tubes that go for miles. Amazing area of Australia's outback. And when I say outback, we're talking, this is cattle country out through here, out places like the Mount Mulligan Lodge. While the lodge itself is quite refined, it sits here as a base for running this Mount Mulligan ranch, and it's from here you can actually sit in what they consider outback luxury. So quintessential Queensland outback, that's what you have. So that really brings it all together. I hope you've enjoyed my little Queensland presentation, and I hope you'll be back. Right now I'd like to open up for any questions so that you can get your bags ready and get them packed. So if you've got any questions on the right-hand side of your screen, if you could just type them in there, and we will do our best to answer them right now. So the common question here is, when are we opening up? Well, right now the exciting thing is that Australia is opening up, but it's opening up internally. The good thing is Australia's done a really, really good job, better than most places in the world right now, in terms of managing this whole virus. And so you'll find that in time, Australia, when it does open up, it'll open up for the right reasons. So it won't fall backwards. It's only going to go forwards. And that's the whole nature of what they're doing. They're doing it properly. They're doing it right. And as things kind of pick up, there'll be other parts of the world, even when they do get a vaccine, that they just won't allow people to travel because they won't be considered safe. Australia definitely is considered safe right now. But right now, like I said, they're just focusing in on internal travel, so state-to-state travel. They're looking to open up with New Zealand. I think that's going to be next on the cards, and also the islands of the South Pacific are opening up as well. What length of stay should one plan for? Well, I think you get the feeling. Queensland's a destination in its own right. It really depends on your interest too. So when you're talking to your travel advisor, what we do is we start with your checklist of things you really want to see and do. So you write your checklist down, and then with your travel advisor, we come together and we work out an itinerary that will best suit you. I think what's going to happen too is people aren't going to want to be moving so much. I think people are going to want to have more immersive experiences. They're going to want to go into the Gold Coast, the Sunshine Coast, Noosa. They want to kind of unpack their bags and stay for 3 or 4 or 5 nights, and really get to know the locals and go to the markets and go swimming with whales and, you do all that fun stuff that you just can't get to if you just kind of fly past. You want to go on 4-wheel drives across to Fraser Island and bounce around the back of a 4-wheel drive vehicle and see dingo and swim in these amazing lakes of pure, pristine water. You want to get up to the Great Barrier Reef. You want to spend time in North Queensland. I mean, that region alone is 2 weeks on its own. And I've barely scratched the surface, I promise you. I could do a presentation just on Cairns and that tropical North Queensland that would blow you away. There's so much to be offered up there. It draws, I've got to tell you, a lot of Australians have moved up that way because to them, it's like, well, they like to say Queensland's God's country, and I've got to say that's probably sitting on God's crown. That's honestly an area where it truly is an amazing place to visit and stay. As far as the island, good question here about the islands, about island stays. You could do if you're a real island person and you want to do, you can actually do a number of island stays, and they give you different parts of the reef, and different locations will offer you different diving experiences if that's what you're drawn to. Also, the opportunity to perhaps even combine an island stay. This is what I did with my wife. We did islands, and we stayed at actually Hayman Island. Then we grabbed the yacht, we sailed, and the day we sailed, it was like a storm had just gone through. Now, the storms are amazing when they come through because like this green, black clouds, and you've got blue sky. And as the storm goes through, behind it, blue sky. It's amazing. And you've got this deluge of rain, and this storm runs through. The waves, of course, the ocean's a bit choppy. So the captain actually, do you want to head off now? We said, yeah, let's do it. So we caught the very tail of the actual wind of the storm, and the sails are full. We're off. We've left a bit late now. We've gone around to Whitehaven Beach. We've gone snorkeled all around there, and I mentioned we went into darkness. We into this little cove. It was just magic, a really magic experience. And just they cook breakfast for you and lunch, and you get a chance to sail yourself. It adds another dimension. I think a good vacation is all about adding different dimensions. The journey is really what it's all about. And Queensland offers some amazing journeys by rail, by road, by air. Some great outback regions of Queensland that you can bring into an itinerary as well. So when it comes to how long, it really comes back to how much time you got. If you've got plenty of time, then we can definitely recommend more. I've got a good point here. Somebody's actually a snowbird. Now, snowbirds, hear me out. Queensland is the place to go for snowbirds. Go down to Australia, stay for like a month, 2 months, get yourself a little house, get yourself an apartment. Then what we'll do, the first week you're there, I'll make sure that you get to know the local surf lifesaving club. I'll get to know you can meet up with locals. You get to know the local sanctuary, the walking tours. Everything is organised. And from that day onwards, once you've gone and done all those things, you've done that little tour of the breweries, the local brew, the actual hop-on tour, the hop-on tour. All of a sudden, you become one of the locals. What a great place. Aussie is so easygoing, so friendly. It's one of the best things you could possibly do. Exchange rate? The exchange rate's really good, thanks, Babs. And right now, it's like 65 cents to the dollar. So your money's going to go further when you're down there. And I've got to tell you also that the nature of tipping in Australia, it's not mandatory. They get paid really good wages. I used to run restaurants. A mate of mine up in Cairns, Craig and I actually we went to a restaurant there in Victoria, up a ski lodge called Breathtaker Ski Lodge at Mount Buller. And tipping wasn't a part of our life. If somebody left, we could have a table of 10 people who paid $1,000 for a great meal and had a great dining experience, and they might leave me $20 and that's it. And people are going, wow, normally it would be, $200. But no, that's fine. It's honestly, tipping is not a big part. So when you're buying stuff down there, you'll find that your money's going to go a lot further because you're not having to pay extra money. Question here about the driving, being on the wrong side of the road. Well, the good thing is you're sitting on the wrong side of the car. Does that make you feel safer? Well, let me just say this. It's not that hard. And it does, you'll find it is easiest, actually, when you first get there. You'll find it very easy, honestly. The secret there, though, is about not doing too many big drives. Like, for example, you don't want to drive too early in the morning or too late in the evening, because that's when animals, kangaroos, are hopping around. And you don't want to hit a kangaroo. That would really ruin your vacation, wouldn't it? So you want to try, you want to be stopping. Get out of the vehicle. Take in the lookouts. Take in the views. Stop at that little fruit stall and where they've got local, indigenous fruits they make into ice creams, and there's lots of fun things you can do. And yeah, markets and restaurants, and pick up souvenirs. Guys, you guys have been great. Some great questions in here. And of course, I will make sure that all you travel advisors, I'll be getting in contact with their travel advisors after, letting you know who of your clients have chimed in. And of course, for my travel advisor friends, I'll make sure if you want to pick up a map or a little dictionary, or you'd like to be sent a link to this Australia travel planner, then you'll need to talk to your travel advisor. And travel advisors, we will be sending you that information where you can pick up this stuff. So travel advisors, keep your eye open for the email follow-up. Now, for those that are interested, we've got a few things going on. The week's not over just yet. Tomorrow, I'm going to Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe. So if you're kind of keen to follow me down there, by all means, let us know. Send me an email, travel advisors, and I'll let you know. Travel advisors, if you'd like to invite your clients to a little Thai cocktail and cooking class, then tomorrow we've got just that happening. So 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I thought it was a nice way to finish the week. I figured, why don't we get a chef? Why don't we get a chef to show us how to make pad thai? And first of all, we're going to have a little cocktail. Now, there'll be a prize for the best decorated cocktail, the best garnish. So, you can have all sorts of fun with that. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a wonderful little Zoom meeting. We'll have a little glass of vino. Even if you're not making a cocktail, you're having a glass of wine or a beer, it doesn't matter. Join us. It'll be fun. It'll be a nice way to finish off the week. I want to thank you for attending our Queensland virtual vacation. I hope that it's given you an insight into why they say Queensland is beautiful one day and perfect the next. We will continue these. In fact, in July, our next one will be, we're doing a Tahiti presentation on the 9th. And Tahiti on the 9th, and then we're doing South. And I've got to say, Tahiti's just opened up. If you're interested in going to Tahiti, take the family, take your bride, take your partner, and have a little romantic escape. In July, they're opening up from the 16th of July onwards. And I'll be doing some training for travel agents on that. And for you and your clients, we'll have a virtual vacation on the 9th. We're doing a virtual vacation to South Australia, my home state in Australia, Adelaide, South Australia, where there's wildlife, wilderness, and wine, where the wonder of Down Under is everywhere. So we're going to do a little South Australia presentation. Then we're going off to neighbouring Bali. Bali's also opening up. They're talking about October this year that Bali will open up. And this is Bali, famous island of the gods, and just an amazing place to explore. And then we're going to go to Fiji. Now, Fiji's actually put the whisper out there about they might be thinking of opening as well. So Fiji, where happiness finds you and the Bulla spirit awaits. Everywhere you go, it's Bulla, Bulla, Bulla. Yeah, Fijians, they're Melanesian, whereas Tahiti is a Polynesian. So you get this wonderful, it's a different culture. They're like genetically disposed to laugh, and they're just wonderful people. Now, we've of course, had quite a few of these virtual vacations, and as travel advisors out there will attest, if you need any of the links to these, like they're all recorded, these recorded videos, then let your travel advisor know, and they will send you a link. And the beautiful thing there, when you click on the link, what you've got to do is put your name in there, put your travel advisor's email address. Yes, you don't have to worry about giving out your email address. Make sure your travel advisor's email address goes in there, and you can watch any of these wonderful virtual vacation videos. I want to thank you very much for being with us today. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. I hope it's got you excited about Queensland, and I wish you all the very best in your travels. Here's cheers, and bye for now.